Tonight we're tiptoeing through marble corridors and torchlit alleys to peek into a world of sandals, togas, and questionable public toilets. So take a nice deep breath, find that cozy blanket, and imagine yourself lying on a stone bed. Don't worry, we'll upgrade you to cushions soon, because you've just woken up in ancient Rome, and it's about to get a little weird. Now, before you even open your eyes, you're aware of a few things. First, it's loud. Not like car horn loud, but echoing footsteps on cobblestones, creaking wooden carts. Someone shouting about fish at an ungodly hour. Second, it smells like bread, wine, and something slightly more human. You're lying on a cot in what passes for a Roman apartment, a cramped, smoky, noisy space called an insula. You're on the third floor, which is bad news. See, in Rome, the lower floors were prime real estate. Rich people lived near the ground, fewer stairs, better plumbing. You, my friend, have to carry water up, and possibly dodge chamber pots. Flying down, yep. People dump their waste from above. Don't ask how you know. Just keep your mouth closed when walking under windows. Your feet hit the floor, and it's cold. There's no insulation, and the little oil lamp barely chases the darkness out of the corners. Still, it's time to get moving. You've got a job to do, probably something like a baker's apprentice, or delivering scrolls to some toga-clad senator who'll never say thank you. But for now, we're taking a walk out in the street. Rome is waking up. Or, actually, it never really went to sleep. That's the thing about ancient cities. They never go quiet. Vendors are already yelling about olives and onions. Beggars are staking out their usual steps, and a pack of stray dogs trots past like they've got somewhere important to be. You hug your thin cloak tighter. It's chilly, but not quiet. Someone's having a domestic dispute in Latin 2 floors up. You understand just enough to know someone forgot to buy garum. That's fermented fish sauce, and now it's war. Let's take a detour toward the Forum. The Forum is like Times Square, but with more marble and fewer flashing lights. It's where everyone goes to be seen, gossip, pray, sue each other, and complain about the price of grain. And here's a fun fact. Most Romans didn't carry around coins in their tunics. They had slaves or freedmen do it. You're your own banker. So if someone steals your coin pouch, and they might, you're out of luck. Keep a hand on your belt. You walk past a public fountain where people are splashing water on their faces. That's breakfast hygiene in ancient Rome. Splash, sniff, maybe a dab of oil if you're fancy. Toothbrushes, not really a thing. Some people chew on twigs, others rinse with vinegar. Your breath smells like old wine and barley bread, and nobody even notices. Speaking of bread, it's breakfast time, or what passes for it. You swing by a thermopolium, a sort of ancient fast food joint. There's a stone counter with big clay jars sunk into it, keeping lentils or wine warm. You get a cup of watered-down wine, yes, even in the morning, and a hunk of bread so hard you could use it as a weapon. Behind the counter, a very sweaty man in a tunic is shouting at a lizard that keeps running across his shelves. The lizard doesn't care. Neither do you. You're just here for the barley stew, which smells like garlic, old socks, and comfort. Now, fed and vaguely clean, you head to the latrina, the public toilets. Prepare yourself. There's a long stone bench with holes. No stalls, no privacy. Just you, your neighbors, and the business at hand. Oh, and instead of toilet paper, a sponge on a stick. Shared, washed in vinegar, between uses. If you're lucky, you settle deeper into the mattress at home. imagining the horror. And suddenly your bathroom seems like a palace. But let's not linger on that. It's mid-morning now, and the sun is climbing over the red-tiled roofs. You decide to wander a bit. After all, this is Rome. You pass a barber shop, which doubles as a social club. Inside, men are getting shaved with blades that haven't seen a sharpener in weeks, arguing about chariot races, in which gladiator has the best abs. Across the street is a litter, basically a portable couch carried by slaves, and on it is a woman in a gown that probably costs more than your apartment. She's wearing enough perfume to knock out a horse, and she's yelling about oysters. Nobody knows why you pass by the baths, the pride of the Roman world. Even the poorest citizens can go to public baths. They're cheap, social, and surprisingly clean. Inside, people move from hot to cold rooms, scrape oil off their bodies with curved tools called strigils, and gossip like it's an Olympic sport. But don't get too relaxed. These baths are also where shady deals happen, love affairs begin, and pickpockets roam. You keep one eye on your tunic pocket, the one with your day's wages wrapped in a cloth, and the other on a suspicious-looking man in sandals 2 sizes too big. Evening's approaching now. The streets are dimming, oil lamps flickering on, and the city is about to take on a different energy. But that's for another night. For now, you crawl back to your insula, tuck yourself into your itchy wool blanket, and let the sounds of Rome creaking carts, distant laughter, a dog barking at something invisible, lull you to sleep. You drift back into the dusty air of ancient Rome, just as the sky is softening into twilight. The oil lamps flicker to life in narrow windows, casting long golden streaks across stone walls and cobbled alleys. It's evening now, and in Rome, that means things are just getting started. You stretch your sore limbs and step out of your insula, careful not to trip on a sleeping dog. Rome doesn't really have a bedtime, not like you do. The poor work until dark, the rich party long after. And in between them is everyone else, bartering, arguing, pickpocketing, or just trying to find a decent dinner. And speaking of dinner, let's talk about food. Or more specifically, what a proper Roman evening meal cena might look like now. If you're poor, which let's face it, you probably are, dinner is going to be pretty simple. Maybe a bowl of poles, which is like a thick grain porridge, kind of like oatmeal's gritty, less lovable cousin. You might toss in some onions if you've got them, or a scrap of salted fish. If you're lucky, maybe even a fig. Not the most glamorous feast, but it fills your belly. You eat with your hands. Maybe a spoon, sitting on a stool, or just the edge of your bed. You don't linger. There's no candlelit table setting. No. How was your day, chat? You eat. You wipe your hands on your tunic. And that's that. But let's take a peek at the other side of town, over in Adomus, where the rich live. Inside those fancy homes, under painted ceilings, and beside bubbling fountains, dinner is a full-blown performance. The wealthy Romans host banquets that last for hours. The guests recline on couches, propped on one elbow, picking at delicacies with the other. The food, oh, it's a parade of excess. Stuffed dormice, flamingo tongues, peacock eggs, oysters soaked in honey, dishes so strange and over the top, you wonder if the chef was just bored and rich. Slaves come and go silently, offering trays of wine, scented towels, and little bites between courses. There's music, poetry, maybe a dramatic reading from Homer, or someone making fart jokes. Roman humor spans the full spectrum, and the wine always mixed with water. Drinking it straight is considered barbaric. But that doesn't stop anyone from getting thoroughly tipsy. By the third course, someone's cousin is trying to wrestle the house dog and a senator's reciting love poetry to a lamp. You chuckle, imagining it, and snuggle deeper into your blanket. Now that the food's gone down and the sun's truly set, the streets take on a different character. There's a little tension in the air, the way a city feels just before a summer storm. Not everyone who walks at night is looking for olives. Night in Rome is a bit like gambling. Some parts glow with music and warmth, others with danger. The torchbearers, yes, actual humans, holding torches, begin walking alongside wealthier citizens to light their way. They're called lampidary, and they'll cost you a few coins. But they're worth every sesterce if you want to avoid tripping over a pile of amphora shards or a passed-out drunk. Let's say you're curious, brave even, and decide to keep walking. You pass a popana, a kind of seedy tavern where the lower classes drink, dice, and complain about politics. The air inside is thick with smoke and regret. A woman is singing something off-key. A guy's passed out on the floor. And two men are arguing over whether chariot driver Scorpus could beat Diocles in a rematch. Spoiler, Diocles always wins. Outside, the torchlight plays across walls scratched with graffiti, not just names and doodles, but full-on poetry, jokes, insults, even political slogans. Someone's declared eternal love for a woman named Livia. Another just wrote, "I peed here." Roman public communication in its rawest form. You walk on, the sound of your sandals echoing on the stones in the distance. Rising above the rooftops like a monster from a dream looms the Colosseum. At night it's closed, but its ghostly bulk is impossible to ignore. You can almost hear the roar of the crowd, the clash of swords, the cry of animals, lions, bears. Even elephants were once dragged in to entertain. People came to cheer and jeer, and watch gladiators bleed. Not every show was deadly, but many were. And the crowd loved it. Life was hard in Rome. Watching someone else's pain somehow made yours easier to bear. You leave that looming shadow behind and wander toward the river. The Tiber flows dark and slow, its banks lined with fishermen pulling in their last catch and drunks singing songs about lost loves and goats. You sit for a moment, watching the flicker of torchlight reflect on the water, and think about how weird it all is, how loud, how messy, how incredibly alive this city feels. The Romans weren't clean by your standards, or safe, or gentle, but they were alive in a way that grabs you and doesn't let go. Finally, you're tired. You make your way back through winding alleys, dodging a pile of something suspicious, nodding to a couple of street musicians who are halfway through an off-key ballad about Mars and a shepherd girl. Back in your apartment, you blow out your oil lamp. The cot creaks as you lie down. You pull your blanket close and listen as the city hums itself to sleep. Dogs bark. Someone yells a slurred insult. A cart rattles by, and a baby cries upstairs. But none of it bothers you now, because this is Rome, and somehow you're starting to belong. The city may look like it's sleeping, but in Rome, that's when the strangest stories wake up. So fluff your pillow, take a long breath, and let's slip quietly back into the shadows of ancient streets where reality, ritual, and the deeply weird walk hand in hand. It's midnight in the Eternal City. The alleys have emptied. Even the taverns are quiet. Now doors bolted, dogs curled up in corners. Only the occasional clatter of a clay jug toppling in the dark to remind you there's still life behind those shuttered windows. But the Romans, they never fully trusted the dark. They respected it, feared it, thought of it as a time when unseen things moved freely. Gods, ghosts, omens. So as the city settles, something else awakens. Belief. You rise from your cot and cross your small room barefoot. The tiles are cool. From the clay shelf near the window, you take a little bronze lamp, still warm from earlier. With a flint and a practiced hand, you light it. The flame sputters, catches, and throws soft gold across the room. Not that you're scared of the dark, but you're a Roman now, and Romans believe that everything means something. Your neighbor's dog howled twice at sunset. That's an omen. Dreamt of eating honey on bread. Good luck is coming. Dreamt of drowning. Better make a sacrifice tomorrow. They didn't take dreams lightly. In fact, they believed dreams came from the gods. Some were messages from Jupiter, some from lesser spirits, and some came from darker corners. Rich Romans often hired dream interpreters, rock critics, to help them figure it all out. Even emperors consulted them. Imagine waking up from a nightmare and summoning your personal priest to whisper over a chicken's liver to explain what your subconscious was trying to say. You walk to the window and peer out. The moon is a pale coin in a soot-streaked sky. Somewhere in the distance, a flute plays a haunting, reedy melodies, slow and lonely. Someone's performing a midnight ritual. They were common, especially near the end of the month. That's when the manes, the spirits of the dead, were thought to roam. Romans believed the dead had needs: food, wine, salt, sometimes even blood, and if you ignored them, they'd come knocking. Literally, people would wake to tapping on walls, or cold breezes from nowhere, and know someone had been forgotten. So, once a month, they made offerings. Tiny altars were set in doorways, on windowsills, or near family tombs. Wine was poured onto the earth. Crumbs of bread, sprinkles of salt or milk, simple gifts for quiet dead. And if you forgot, well, you might wake up to something sitting at the end of your bed. But not all spirits were welcome. Some dead didn't stay quiet, no matter what you fed them. They were called lemures, restless, vengeful, and deeply unpleasant. To banish them, Romans had a festival in May called Lemuria. Picture this: you wake at midnight, barefoot, wearing no metal. You wash your hands 3 times, walk around your house, and throw black beans over your shoulder while chanting, "With these I redeem me and mine." Then, 9 times, you shout, "Ghosts of my fathers, be gone." You do all this hoping the lemures will accept the beans and leave. If not, well, let's just say you won't be the one sleeping peacefully. You yawn and smile, grateful for the silence in your own room tonight. Across town, near the Capitoline Hill, the elite might be tossing in silk-covered beds, haunted not by ghosts, but by the pressure of omens. Public figures obsessed over them. Sneezes, birds flying left instead of right, thunder after a sentence. Every sound, smell, and shape could mean something. And if things seemed truly ominous, they'd go to a hearth specialist who read the future in the entrails of sacrificed animals. Imagine holding a job where your daily tools include sheep guts and divine interpretation. Business was good, especially in uncertain times. And in Rome, every time was uncertain. Still, not every Roman looked to Jupiter or Mars. Some whispered different names in the dark. Mystery cults. You slip on your sandals and leave the room, curiosity pulling you down the stairwell. The streets are still quiet, but not deserted. A figure passes you in a dark cloak, head down, carrying something wrapped in cloth. Another follows, then another. You're being drawn toward something. Hidden in a crumbling building beneath. A wine shop. You find a door just barely cracked open. Soft candlelight flickers inside. No one speaks. They nod, and you're allowed in. Welcome to a meeting of the cult of Isis. The cults of Isis, Mithras, Sibylithes were foreign deities, worshipped in secret or semi-secret, often by people who felt disconnected from Rome's formal religion. Soldiers, slaves, women. Their rites were private, emotional, and often mysterious even to outsiders. In Isis' temple, there are no grand sacrifices of bulls. There's incense, chanting, soft music, whispered prayers for protection, healing, rebirth. For her followers, the divine was not distant like Jupiter. It was close, intimate, a goddess who mourned, who listened. A slave woman beside you weeps softly. A soldier kneels with his head bowed. A child offers flowers. You leave quietly, a little awed. Not all of Rome's power is loud. You cross back through the city. A drunk stumbles past, laughing to himself, singing the name of his ex-wife. A cat watches you from a roof, like it knows more than it should. There's one last place to visit. Tonight, the temple of Janus, god of beginnings, endings, and doors. His temple's doors stayed open in times of war and closed in peace. In your time, they are open, which says something about how Rome views the world. Inside, a few candles flicker. A priest sleeps against a pillar, snoring softly. You sit for a moment, soaking in the silence. Janus has two faces, one looking to the past, the other to the future. Tonight, in this hush between midnight and dawn, it feels like time stops entirely. You think about everything you've seen, dreams as divine messages, ghosts begging for crumbs, beans flung at midnight, whispers to forgotten gods, blood red like a book. And somehow, it all makes sense here. This is a city of paradox, a place that builds stone arches to last for centuries, but lights its streets with oil and fear. A place where the powerful fear bad omens, and the poor find comfort in a goddess who cries with them. A place where nothing is truly forgotten, not the dead, not the dreams, not even a bean tossed in the dark. You walk back to your insula in a gentle daze, climbing the narrow stairs again, the boards creak under your feet. Inside your room, the little oil lamp is still warm. You blow it out. The room fades into shadow. Outside, a rooster crows far too early. You pull your blanket higher. The ghosts are quiet. The gods are fed. And for now, Rome sleeps, so do you. The last of the wine shops have bolted their doors. Torches gutter low in their brackets. The clatter of sandals has faded, leaving Rome suspended in an uncanny hush. A silence heavy with secrets, with breath held back. And yet, even now, Rome doesn't truly sleep. It waits. So pull that blanket tighter. Let your breath slow, and imagine yourself beneath a coarse wool cloak. Your face hidden by shadows, walking alone through the city that has outlived empires. The deeper you go into the night, the more of Rome you uncover, not just its marble and temples, but its darkness too. Let's talk about crime. Yes, even in a city where senators dine on flamingo tongues and people bathe in public, crime is not just common. It's an art form by day. Pickpockets flourish in the crowds. By night, it's bolder, more dangerous. In the flickering light of oil lamps, cutthroats roam, ready to lighten your purse or slit your throat if they think no one's looking, and often, no one is. You're walking through the Subira now, Rome's seediest neighborhood. It's a labyrinth of rickety insulae stacked like rotten teeth, narrow alleys that wind like intestines, and doors that never seem to close. Everyone knows someone here, and everyone knows not to ask questions. A girl leans in a doorway humming softly. A man follows you too closely for too long. You move faster. He doesn't. You duck into a passage, and lose him in the smoke from a late-night seance. Inside the shop, an old man is boiling eel heads in a blackened pot. He doesn't ask your name. He hands you a bowl, points to a bench, and says nothing. For a coin, he gives you a bite and a moment of safety. For two, he forgets he saw you at all. This is justice in the Suburra, private, quiet, and always for sale. But Rome doesn't just ignore crime, it punishes it. Sometimes, spectacularly. Let's say you're caught stealing nothing noble, just bread, or a coin pouch. You might be flogged, branded, or marched through the streets with signs hung around your neck. But if the crime is bigger, if you're poor and unlucky, then you'll meet the lictors. You've seen them, men in red tunics, bearing bundles of rods, fasces, and axes. They accompany magistrates, representing the Roman state's authority to punish. The rods are for beating. The axe is for, well, that part rarely ends well. If you're a citizen, you can appeal. In theory, if you're a slave, no such luck. Slaves, caught stealing or rebelling, are punished with brutal efficiency. Flogging, crucifixion, or the mines. No trial, no delay, no name. Even just another body under Rome's heel. You remember hearing of a case where a slave murdered his master. The law required all 400 slaves in the household to be executed. And they were. Rome believes in order. It believes in fear. Justice isn't always about guilt. It's about maintaining control. Sometimes, trials are public. Loud, political, dramatic. But other times, justice is served in the quiet dark, with a dagger in an alley, or a silent exile declared by dawn. Now let's talk prisons, carceres. You're probably picturing barred cells, guards with spears, maybe a rat or two. The reality: Roman prisons weren't really for keeping people long-term. They were more like holding pens. Temporary, cramped, unlit. Underground, one of the most feared was the Tullianum, a dungeon beneath the Capitoline Hill, a place of no return. It wasn't a place where people served sentences, it was where people waited to die. Condemned prisoners were thrown in and forgotten. Some were strangled, some starved, some simply rotted. You shiver as you pass near the Forum and glance toward its darkened arches. You know the Tullianum is close. The stone breathes cold at your back, but not all punishment is hidden. The Colosseum is silent now, a dark hulk of arches. But in daylight, it was where criminals were devoured for sport. They called them damnati, at bestias condemned to the beasts. A man might steal a purse and find himself, months later, in a sand-covered arena, facing a lion with nothing but a stick. Execution as entertainment, justice as spectacle. It was brutal, but it worked. Or at least, it kept people afraid. Even in homes, punishment was deeply rooted in Roman life. Fathers held patria potestas, absolute authority over their families. That meant they could legally kill their children, beat their wives, or sell them into slavery. Few did, but the power was there, written into the bones of the city. Still, not all was fear. Rome had order to dot the vigils. Rome's version of night watchmen patrolled the streets to stop fires and crimes. They carried clubs, worked in teams, and were often former slaves themselves. You see one now, passing with a lantern and a tired look. He nods, but doesn't stop. They're underpaid, overworked, and often more focused on keeping their own skin safe than yours. But they're there, a reminder that someone is watching, even in the shadows. Still, for many Romans, justice wasn't earthly, it was divine. If the courts failed, if the guards looked the other way, people turned to gods of vengeance. The goddess Nemesis, her name still lingers, today was prayed to in whispers. If someone wronged you, stole from you, dishonored your family, you didn't always go to the magistrate. You went to Nemesis. Or worse, you hired a curse writer. They were called defixions, thin lead tablets inscribed with curses, folded and nailed shut, and buried in graves or wells. These were prayers, yes, but dark ones, calling on underworld gods to blind, cripple, or ruin someone. They've found hundreds of these tablets. One reads, "May he be unable to speak, unable to sleep, unable to make love, until he returns what is mine." Another says simply, "Crush the bones of Varanus." Effective, maybe, but mostly, it gave people power when nothing else did. You pass a graveyard now, outside the walls. The dead are buried here, beyond the city, as law demands. You walk carefully, respectfully. Romans feared the dead, who were buried angry. Small terracotta statues line the path, tokens from mourners. You notice a fresh one, a woman with her hands raised in grief. Someone still mourns here. You leave quickly. You've seen enough of death for one night. But here's the thing, Rome's punishments weren't just about crime. They were about message. A thief wasn't just flogged, he was paraded. A traitor wasn't just killed. He was damnatio memoriae. Names scratched off buildings, statues destroyed, records erased. Erased from memory, from history, from Rome itself. That was the worst fate, not to be punished, but to be forgotten. You walk now through a quieter district. The homes are larger here. Marble columns, walled gardens, slaves sleeping on straw mats just inside the doors. In one, a senator dreams of power. In another, a widow offers a silent prayer to her household gods for protection. A baby cries. Nurse coos. A cat jumps down from a balcony and disappears into the dark. Life goes on, even after dark, even after judgment. You find yourself back at the threshold of your insula. You take one last look at the street. The wind carries the faintest scent of baking bread. Maybe a baker starting early. Maybe just your mind playing tricks. You climb the stairs slowly. Your bed weights scratchy wool, lumpy straw, but yours. And as you lie down, something dawns on you. The justice of Rome wasn't clean, it wasn't kind. But it kept the city breathing. Not through fairness, but through fear. Not through compassion, but through memory. Because to be Roman was to be watched, judged, remembered by the gods, by your peers, by history itself. You close your eyes, the street settles, the wind stills, and finally, even Rome rests. The sharp edge of midnight has softened into something quieter, more intimate. The city exhales. The beasts have returned to their lairs, the swords to their sheaths. And now something sweeter stirs in the dark corners of ancient Rome. So slip deeper beneath your blanket. Feel the hush in your chest. Because tonight, the eternal city is whispering not of war or law, but of love. Yes, love, in all its tangled Roman forms. You slip out into the cool night air once more, this time with no destination, just a curiosity. The moon hangs low, golden and full, painting the cobblestones with silver shadows. Around you, the city is quieter than before, no longer dangerous. But dreaming, you pass a wall covered in graffiti, but this time, it's not about politics, or business, or body jokes. It's about hearts. I love the girl who sleeps beyond this door. Secundus, to Livy I was here, waiting again. Victory in the circus is nothing compared to her eyes. Romans, it turns out, were hopeless romantics, just in their own raw, blunt, wonderfully odd way. Their love was not always subtle. It was scratched into walls, written on wax tablets, shouted across balconies. Their poems dripped with longing and lust, sometimes both. Even the great poet Ovid Catullus, Propertius composed verses meant not for the gods or history books, but for real women and imagined heartbreak. You walk through a narrow alley. The shadows flicker with the last of the oil lamps. A figure waits under a fig tree, humming quietly. A girl peers out from a second-story window. She leans out slightly, a hand pressed to her mouth. Her eyes meet the figure's. Nothing is said. A moment passes. Then she disappears, and he turns away. Not in defeat, but in routine. It's not the first night they've done this. Rome is full of secrets, and love might be its best kept one. But what did love mean in Rome? Let's start with marriage matrimonium. It wasn't always about passion. Often, it was an arrangement between families. Property, alliances, honor, a contract written in flesh and sealed with witnesses. Still, not all was cold. Many Roman couples did fall deeply in love, sometimes despite the arrangements, and weddings when they happened, were full of ritual and symbolism. Picture it, a bride in a white tunic, wrapped in a saffron veil, led through the streets by a torchlit procession. She carries 3 coins, one for her husband's household gods, one for his hand, and one to drop in silence at the threshold. Her hair is parted with a spearhead, symbolizing strength and fertility. Friends sing crude songs. Laughter fills the night air, and when she reaches the groom's home, he lifts her over the threshold, not because it's romantic, but because stumbling would be bad luck. You smile at the thought. Roman weddings were noisy, joyful, a little ridiculous, and absolutely unforgettable. But love didn't stop at the marriage contract. Romans wrote love spells, buried charms, prayed to Venus, and made offerings for desire or fidelity. They believed in physical attraction, divine influence, and the power of words. A poet could win a lover with verse. A flower, plucked at the right moment, could ensure devotion. And then there were rings, not just pretty gold bands, but ones engraved with Latin phrases, amor vincit, omnia, love conquers all, or memento me, remember me, little symbols of something vast. You pass by a small fountain where someone has left an offering: 2 apples, slightly bruised, and a sprig of rosemary. A quiet prayer to Fortuna, perhaps, or Venus Closina, patroness of both love and public sewers. Rome had a god for everything. And when lovers couldn't be together, they carved their names into marble, scratched initials into bricks, or sent messages by slave or song. Some would write letters on wax tablets, sealed with a kiss, carried at night beneath cloaks. Others would simply wait outside a window, beside a door, beneath a balcony, hoping for a glimpse, a smile, a nod. Rome, even in its grandeur, was deeply human. There were trysts in the shadows, meetings by moonlight, rendezvous behind temples. And yes, there were brothels, some state-owned, some private, but not every pleasure was bought. Some was stolen, some was shared, and some, despite the odds, bloomed like violets through stone. You round a corner and find yourself near the temple of Venus and Roma, twin goddesses of love and eternity. The steps are cold underfoot. The columns rise like frozen waves. In the stillness, someone has left a bundle of wildflowers, lavender, thyme, and poppies. Not expensive, not fancy, but real. A note rests beneath them. You lean closer. I miss your voice. Come tomorrow, by the olive grove. You step back, careful not to disturb the offering. Even the gods, it seems, eavesdrop on love. Now let's talk about poetry. Catullus, the fire-hearted poet of Rome, once wrote to his lover Lesbia, "I hate and I love." Why do I do this? Perhaps you ask. I do not know, but I feel it, and I am tormented. Love in Rome was like that torment wrapped in honey, lust laced with lyric. Poets chased shadows. Women inspired wars. Men dueled over glances. And the city itself, and vast, aching was the backdrop for every aching syllable. You pass a villa where soft lyre music drifts out the window. A voice murmurs in Greek Sappho, maybe, or something newer. Inside, two lovers sip watered wine. Outside, the city listens. Not all love was easy. Some was forbidden between classes, between genders, across power divides. But Rome, for all its laws and rules, could be curiously tolerant. What mattered most wasn't always who you loved but whether you loved well. Even the gods had opinions on that. You reach a small crossroads and see a shrine to Cupid, the chubby-cheeked god of desire. Coins glitter in the bowl. Someone's left a tiny statue of a heart pierced by an arrow. Another offering, another wish. You remember that Cupid wasn't always cute. Sometimes he was mischievous, even cruel, shooting one lover with a golden arrow and the other with lead. A blessing and a curse in one flight. Such was Roman love. Glorious, tragic, fleeting, eternal. You wander now toward the field of Mars, where lovers sometimes walked at dawn. The stars begin to dim. A faint orange light stirs in the east. The city will wake soon, but not yet. You take one last moment. You sit by a column, feel the cool stone against your back, and close your eyes. Around you, Rome dreams. A baker's daughter kisses a soldier before he marches at dawn. A young scribe hides a poem inside a folded napkin, hoping it will be found. A senator's wife fingers her necklace and wonders what happened to the boy who once gave her flowers. A widow lights a candle for the man she still calls husband, even 20 years later. And somewhere, a poet picks up his stylus and writes the words that will outlive them all. You stand and begin your walk back. Heartful. Back in your room, the bed waits. You slip under the rough linen, muscles softening, breath slowing. The lamp burns low. The city hums faintly below. And as sleep takes you, you carry with you the sound of whispered names, the smell of wildflowers, and the rhythm of footsteps. In moonlight, because in Rome, even love has its own echo. And it never really fades. Rome isn't quiet. It isn't sleeping. The streets pulse with life. Laughter rings out. Flutes trill wildly. And even the gods, yes, even they seem drunk on the madness of celebration. You pull your cloak tighter, but it's no use. The heat of torches and breath and fire spills out across every street. Welcome to festival night in the eternal city, tonight. You won't just walk through history, you'll dance through it. Let's start with the smell. It hits you first. Roasted meat, honeyed wine, spilt garum, sweat, perfume, smoke thick, rich, alive. The scent of 1,000 people gathered under the stars to forget their chores, their debts, their fears. For one night, even the lowest citizen is lifted. Even the highest senator is pulled into the street. You hear singing Ahedra voices, off-key, exuberant. A drum bangs somewhere in the distance, and a girl stumbles past you, wearing nothing but ivy in her hair and a grin wide enough to make Venus blush. You've arrived in the middle of the Liberolia, Wild March festival dedicated to Liber, god of wine, fertility, and unashamed chaos. Think of him as Rome's rougher version of Bacchus, or Dionysus, if he'd been raised on alley fights and fig wine. It's not yet the Saturnalia, that December riot of misrule, but the spirit is the same. Abandon, for one night, or several, the rules. Bend, the veils drop. Rome forgets to be proud and lets itself be ridiculous. A masked man presses a cup of wine into your hand before spinning away, howling a hymn to some minor god of grain. You sip. It's sweet, sticky, a little dangerous. Around you, people wear garlands, tunics, or nothing at all. Someone plays cymbals. Someone else juggles fruit. A donkey wearing a laurel wreath trots by, unfazed. Welcome to the ancient Roman party. No invitations. No apologies. Even the air feels enchanted, like the gods are watching and laughing. Let's talk about Saturnalia. Just for a moment, it was the greatest party of all held in December, just as the nights grew longest. A celebration of Saturn, the ancient god of time, harvest, and forgotten golden ages. For a week sometimes, longer Rome flipped itself upside down. Slaves were served by masters. Gambling was legal. Schools were closed. Business paused. People gave gift scandals, dice poems, small statues, and everywhere you turned, there were cries of Io Saturnalia, shouted from balconies, doorways, and the steps of temples. Imagine an entire city, drunk and singing. Imagine trying to sleep through that. You smile to yourself, wandering deeper into tonight's celebration. It might not be Saturnalia, but the spirit is alive. A group of flute girls twirls past, casting petals and flirtation in equal measure. Behind them come priests carrying garlands, their white robes smudged with ash and wine. Children throw walnuts at a statue. A baker sings a lewd song about Juno and a goat. Nobody cares. Everyone laughs. You pass a Papina tavern and peek inside. It's full, overflowing. Wine sloshes from cups. Bread is broken between strangers. A man recites a dirty poem to roars of approval. Someone slaps your back and shouts a toast to Mercury. You raise your cup in return. Above the chaos, you spot a quieter group gathered in a candlelit courtyard. They're watching a puppet show, a tradition for this festival. Crude wooden gods bicker in high voices. The children laugh wildly. One of them mimics Jupiter's booming voice, and the others collapse in a heap. It's strange, isn't it? How laughter echoes so long through stone. Now here's the thing. Rome needed these nights. The empire was rigid, hierarchical, proud. Every day was a performance of strength, wealth, control. But humans can't live on pride alone. They need release. And the gods, wise in their cruelty, gave them these nights of sanctioned madness. Nights where you could mock a senator, kiss a stranger, spill wine on your sandals, and not apologize. And they weren't just for fun. They were ritual. The noise, the chaos, it all had meaning. It wasn't just celebration. It was a way to reset the order of things. A valve to keep the city from boiling over. Even the gods liked a little mischief now and then. You cross into a broader street where a torchlight procession is passing. People carry bundles of flaming stixtrolia, torches meant to honor Ceres, goddess of grain. They chant softly, an old song, a rhythm of sowing and reaping. Even in this revelry, there's a thread of reverence. Behind them dancers leap and twist half-naked, oiled, shouting praises to Faunus, god of wild things. Their movements are frenzied, almost animal. It's beautiful and a little frightening, like watching thunder trapped in human skin. And somewhere, always, the wine flows. The wine. Romans didn't just drink, they philosophized about drinking. There were rules, etiquettes, expectations. But tonight, those are tossed aside like empty amphorae. Even women, usually barred from such indulgences, sip freely tonight. Even slaves sing without fear. You find yourself pulled into a circle dance, arms linked with strangers. You don't know the steps. No one cares. The drums pound, feet stomp, and for a moment, you're not walking through Rome, you're spinning with it. Then the music fades. The circle breaks. You stumble out, laughing. Not everything in the night is light, though in the corner of a square, an old man sings to a statue of Janus, god of thresholds. His voice is cracked but sure. He pours wine at the base of the pedestal, murmurs a prayer. Janus watches in stone silence, two-faced as always, one face looking forward, one back. You realize the festivals aren't just about now. They're about then too. About what was. Every ritual remembers something, an old myth, a dead god, a victory, or a fall. The past is always present here. Even the laughter is old. And then, from somewhere deeper in the city, comes a distant drumbeat. Not festive, not joyful. Something older, more sacred. It's the sound of mystery rites. Not every celebration was public. Some, like the rites of Sibylle or Mithras, were hidden, performed at night, in secret chambers, lit by flickering oil lamps and heavy with incense. Tonight, the public rejoices, but some pray in shadows. You hear the chants, rise low, rhythmic, pulsing with belief. A goat cries once, then is silent. You pass on, quietly. Near dawn now. The first hints of morning touch the eastern walls. But the city won't sleep yet. Not quite. You find yourself in the forum, usually a place of law and speeches. Tonight, it's littered with broken cups and footprints. A woman naps beneath a statue of Minerva. A boy plays a reed flute to himself. Two lovers dance, barefoot, in the ashes of an old fire. The celebration is ending, but it isn't over. You sit on a stone step, watching. Around you, Rome exhales, happy, exhausted, glowing. You realize something. The reason these festivals mattered wasn't just the wine or the dancing or the masks. It was the permission they gave. Permission to laugh, to weep, to be foolish, loud, tender. To remember that beneath the marble, Rome was built of humans, and humans need fire, and song, and nights like these. The torchlight dies. The drums fade. Someone begins to sweep the street with a palm frond. You rise and begin your walk home. The city is quieter now, humming with sleep and satisfaction. Back in your room, the oil lamp flickers low. You remove your sandals, your garland of crushed rosemary, and crawl beneath the blanket. And as you close your eyes, Rome keeps singing softly now, like a lullaby made of marble and memory. Last night, it danced in the torchlight of festivals. But tonight, it walks slower, softer, as if holding its breath. Because not all Roman nights are full of joy. Some are filled with fever, so gather your blanket close again. Settle into the stillness. And let's walk now, not through revelry, but through remedy. Rome is no stranger to illness. Crowded streets, public baths, open sewers. A city of 1,000,000 bodies is a city of 10 million microbes, though they wouldn't have called them that. What they feared had different names. Fever spirits, foul airs, curses. And tonight, we follow someone who faces that fear daily. She moves like a shadow. A small woman, wrapped in a dark wool cloak, carrying a worn satchel. She is a medica healer, not a doctor in the male, elite, scroll-bearing sense. Know those. Served the wealthy and more theory than patient. This woman works in life. You trail behind her as she turns down a side alley in the Esquiline Hill. where the poor live packed in tall, crumbling insulae. There are no signs, no grand entrances. Just a small mark scratched into the wall beside a doorway, a bundle of herbs, and the Greek letter, theta, theta, a subtle warning, or perhaps a ward against death. Inside it smells of thyme, vinegar, and something burnt. A man lies on a straw. Pallid sweat beads his forehead. He mutters nonsense words to no one. A child watches from the corner, eyes wide. The healer kneels. She doesn't ask questions. She works by touch, by smell, by instinct. Her fingers are stained with marigold and yarrow. Her breath smells of bitter licorice root. She unrolls a bundle of cloth. Inside are small knives, bone needles, dried herbs, vials of oil and resin, and one obsidian amulet. The tools of 1,000-year craft passed from woman to woman, midwife to apprentice, whispered, not written. This man has malaria, though they don't call it that. They call it febris tertianatha, third-day fever. Common in the marshy edges of the Tiber, it comes like a ghost every few days, shaking, sweating, then gone, until it returns. She mixes a paste of wormwood and vinegar, spreads it on his chest. She ties a red wool thread around his wrist, and speaks softly, not Latin, not Greek, but some older tongue, perhaps Etruscan, or half-forgotten. Sabine, the child, closes her eyes. Magic. Yes, and no. To Romans, medicine was magic and magic, medicine. There was no clear line. A healer might apply a poultice, then whisper a charm. A senator might own shelves of Galen's writings, and still keep a protective scarab under his pillow. Fear makes believers of us all. Let's talk for a moment about Roman medicine. The elite doctors Mediciste, studied in Alexandria. Translated, Hippocrates followed the teachings of Galen. They knew about blood, bile, phlegm, the four humors. They believed imbalance caused disease, but the body, that was only half the story. Romans also feared miasma, bad air, cursed winds. They believed in the evil eye, in noxious spirits, in diseases sent by angry gods or restless dead. To heal a body, you sometimes had to heal the invisible dot, so cures were layered, a salve, a prayer, a charm, a diet. You walk now toward the temple of Aesculapius, the Roman god of healing. It stands across the river on Tiber Island, a place long associated with recovery. People come here when no one else can help. They sleep in its halls hoping to dream a cure. Incubation, they call it. The god visits in dreams, they say, whispering. What herbs to use, where to touch, what to avoid. It's a desperate hope. But sometimes hope heals more than ointment. You see votive offerings left behind. Tiny terracotta arms, legs, ears, representations of healed parts. Left in thanks. Someone left a model of a uterus carved in ivory. Someone else, a tongue made of bronze. A silent testimony to those who walked in sick and walked out whole. Back in the city, the healer visits a new home. This one is wealthier. The house is lit with polished bronze lamps. The air smells of lavender. But inside, a boy has the bloody fluxwat we now call dysentery. His mother paces. His father wrings his hands. Even wealth can't shield you. She gives them charcoal water, mixes pomegranate rind into a tea. She burns rosemary to purify the air. And when they ask for more, when the father insists on something stronger, she hands him a small scroll tied in red thread, a Kauji tablet disguised. He doesn't open it, just tucks it beneath the boy's pillow, like the healer told him. He thinks it's a medicine. Maybe it is. She never tells them what it says. You follow her to a bathhouse next. Not for pleasure, but because wounds fester and steam. The balnea are breeding grounds for both gossip and gangrene. She's called to see a man with an infected cut. He slipped on a marble stair. She drains the wound, applies crushed garlic. No antiseptic, no bandage, just honey and prayer. Honey, they know, heals. Even if they don't understand why. And, always, in her satchel, a mirror. Not for vanity, but for diagnosis. Romans believed the eyes could reflect illness. That breath clouded on metal showed infection. She holds it under noses, near mouths, over hearts. It tells her more than any scroll could. Now let's talk about death. When healing fails, and often it does, Rome prepares. Death isn't hidden here. It is part of life. People die at home. Families gather. Women wail, not in sorrow, but in duty. Professional mourners sing laments, beat their breasts, tear their hair. To grieve loudly is to honor. When the body cools, the eyes are closed with coins. The mouth is sealed. A coin is placed under the tongue. For Charon, the ferryman, and then comes the funeral procession. Even at night, it might happen. Torches lit, flutes playing, mourners walking slowly through the dark. They carry wax masks of ancestors, telling stories, reciting names. For the poor, it's quiet. For the rich, it's theater. The healer watches these passings not with sadness, but with a deep stillness. She has delivered babies. She has stitched wounds. She has prepared bodies. Her hands hold both beginnings and ends. She walks now toward the Forum Holitorium, the herb market, where late-night traders whisper and haggle by lamplight. A boy offers her a bundle of rue. A woman sells dried silphium precious, nearly extinct. She buys only what she needs. Coriander, myrrh, fig leaves. There are no prescriptions here, only memory and intuition. Once someone asked her how she knows what to use. She said, "The body tells me, the gods confirm." You believe her. She's tired now. She returns to her tiny room above a bakery. She lights a lamp, kneels before a shelf holding clay figures Apollo, Aegea, Minerva, and one warned figure that might be her mother, or herself. She whispers a prayer, touches her heart, and finally rests. And you return to your room too. Your blanket feels softer tonight, somehow sacred. You think of the fevered man, of the boy on the silk sheets, of the herbs and whispers, of the way a woman walked through the dark, unafraid, because in a city of marble and blood, of empire and rot, of laws and laughter, it is the healers who hold it together, not with glory, not with power, but with poultices, and persistence, and patience. You close your eyes, and sleep, for once, comes easy. There are no festivals in the streets, no torches or drums. Only stillness, and something else. A kind of watchfulness, like the city is holding its breath. Rome has always lived on the edge of the sacred and the strange, and tonight, you can feel it, so wrap your blanket tighter. Let your eyes adjust to the shadows. Because now we walk into a Rome not lit by oil lamps or the moon, but by omens, dreams, and the ghost sigh of superstition. You step out into the street. It is nearly silent. The wine cellars are closed. The temples are locked. Even the cats seem cautious. The only sound is the faint rustle of laurel leaves in the breeze and the occasional distant cry of an owl. You pause, because even that small sound and owl at night is a sign. To a Roman, nothing was accidental. The world was constantly speaking, if you knew how to listen. A spilled cup, a flickering flame, a dog howling at the wrong hour. These were not random, they were omens, and in the quiet of night, They were louder than ever. Tonight, let's walk with the watchers, the ones who read the smoke, the sky, and the soul. First, the augurs. These were the sacred interpreters of bird signs. Not just priests, but diviners of will, trained to read the gods' messages in feathers and flight. They'd stand in high places on hills or rooftops, watching the paths birds took across the sky. Left to right, a good omen. Right to left, danger, if the birds didn't appear at all. The ceremony stopped. The army didn't march. The marriage wasn't approved. Not until the sky said yes. Tonight, one such augur stands on the Palatine Hill, gazing up into the stars. He's wrapped in white wool, his staff in hand, eyes fixed on a silent sky. Around him, nothing moves. He whispers a prayer not to Jupiter, but to the Numina, the ancient forces that dwell in every rock, tree, and breath of wind. A gust stirs the pines. He nods once and leaves. The sign has been given. Now, let's follow. Someone else's dream interpreter. A woman, perhaps, older, her face marked with lines in moonlight. She sits in a candlelit chamber behind a small tavern, a dish of water before her. People come to her with their dreams. A soldier saw his father's ghost in sleep, holding a cracked helmet. A merchant dreamed of a lion eating figs. A girl dreamed of her wedding, but the veil was made of smoke. Each dream, she says, means something. The ghost warns of guilt. The lion promises fortune through risk. The smoky veil, a warning love will come. But be fleeting. She's not guessing. She studied the Librae Somniorum books of dreams, filled with lists of signs and their meanings. She adds her own interpretations, too, passed down from her mother, and her mother's mother. Things never written, only whispered. Dreams matter in Rome. Even emperors sent their dreams to be interpreted. Even the most rational citizen might hesitate before ignoring a vision seen in sleep. For the gods spoke in dreams. So did fate, and sometimes, so did the dead. You step out of the chamber and back into the night. It's darker now. A thick fog has crept in from the river, curling low like a ghost's hem. Your footsteps feel louder. You pass an intersection and notice something scratched into the stone wall. Beware the crossroads. Spirits gather here. Romans feared crossroads, not just for crime or confusion, but because they believed they were haunted. By what? By the Lemures, the restless dead, the unburied, the unmourned, the ones without names or shrines. At night, it was said, they wandered between homes, beneath bridges, through forgotten alleys, especially where two roads met. So people left offerings, milk, bread soaked in wine, black beans, and always words. Let this gift be enough. Go in peace. Once a year, during the Lemuria festival, families would walk barefoot through there. Homes at midnight, tossing beans behind them and chanting, "With these I redeem me and mine." Even the emperor did it, just in case. Because no one wanted a lemur in their bedroom. You walk faster now, not afraid, exactly, but aware. Rome at night is a city of eyesome living, some not. A dog growls in the distance. A lamp flickers. You pass a shrine to Hecate, goddess of magic and the moon. Someone has left garlic and raw eggs on the altar. You don't touch them, and now we come to curses. Romans didn't just pray for good things. Sometimes, they prayed for revenge. They scratched their curses into thin sheets of lead called defixients, unfolded them, pierced them with nails, then dropped them into wells, graves, or the temple of a chthonic god. The curses were often personal. I curse Lucius the charioteer. May he lose, stumble, be struck dumb. May his horses fail him, and his limbs betray him. Let Flavia love me as I love her, or let her never sleep again. Not all curses were cruel. Some were desperate, pleas for justice, for stolen items returned, for lovers to come home, for enemies to know your pain. Tonight, beneath the baths, you see a girl kneeling at a crack in the wall. She whispers a name and drops a folded scrap of lead into the gap. Her eyes are full of tears. She's not angry, just alone. Now let's talk about protective magic. Not everyone cursed. Most simply tried to protect themselves. You see a boy wearing a small gold bulla around his neck, an amulet filled with herbs and tiny bones, meant to ward off the evil eye. He clutches it when a stranger passes. You see a door marked with red. Handprints charms against misfortune. You see a woman sleeping beneath a bundle of dried fennel and lavender, a homemade spell to banish nightmares. Rome, for all its concrete and conquest, still believed the world was made of invisible forces. And when night came, those forces crept closer. So what did people fear? Sudden death in sleep, ill dreams, a knock at the door when no one is there, a candle blowing out on its own, a child waking with eyes too wide, a mirror reflecting something not in the room. These things made even the bravest man cross himself and mutter a prayer to Vesta or Sylvanus, gods of hearth and boundary. You reach the edge of the necropolis, the city of the dead. Roman law forbade burials within the city walls. So the roads leading out of Rome are lined with tombs, large and small. Some are grand, carved with poetry and likenesses. Others are humble, stones marked only with names. But all are meant to remember. For a Roman, being forgotten after death was the worst fate of all. That's why tombs were built tall. Why names were inscribed so carefully. Why families made offerings during the Parentalia festival, bringing flowers, food, and song to the graves. And yet, some are forgotten. You pass one such tomb now, crumbling, overgrown, its name worn away by time. You feel a sudden chill. Then you remember what the old saying warned: the dead drink tears. So you offer a thought, a name, any name, and walk. On the fog is lifting now. The first edge of dawn is touching the rooftops. The birds not, the omens, but the real ones begin to stir. Rome stretches in her sleep. But one last place calls to you, at the edge of the forum. You see a single candle flickering before a household shrine. A man kneels before it, hands raised. He's praying not to Jupiter or Mars, but to his Larises, household spirits. Every Roman home had them. They protected the family, watched the door, marked the hearth. He speaks their names softly, offers them wine and crumbs, asks them to bless the day ahead. Even the strongest empire begins with a prayer. In the dark, you turn home. The shadows are thinner now. The omens have gone quiet. The streets are empty once more. You pass the graffiti again, this time seeing something new. I saw her in a dream. She smiled. You smile too, because not all signs are warnings. Some are blessings, some are memories, and some are just the city whispering that you're not alone. Back in your room, the lamp has gone out. The blanket is warm. You slip beneath it, your eyes still full of candlelight and stone. And as you fall asleep, you hear only this: the rustle of laurel, the hum of silence, and the dreams of a city that has always believed, deep down, that the night is alive. You've walked with revelers and healers, ghosts and gods. You've heard prayers whispered into fog, curses etched in lead, and laughter behind tavern doors. But as we come to the end of our nighttime journey through ancient Rome, it's time to walk with the ones who never slept. Because for every Roman tucked safely beneath wool blankets and dreams, someone else was wide awake. So let's find them. One more walk. One more night. Let's begin where the shadows are longest. With the vigils, they are the city's firemen, night watchmen, and occasional policemen all rolled into one. By day, they drill and inspect cisterns. But by night, they patrol the streets, carrying lanterns and wooden clubs, watching for thieves, drunks, and most of all, fire. Rome burns easily. The buildings are tall and close together. Cooking is done over open flame. Oil lamps tip, embers jump. A single unattended brazier can light a whole block, so the vigils watch. They walk in pairs, boots echoing on the stone. You see one now, young and wide-shouldered, tapping his club lightly as he walks past shuttered stalls and dark temples. His eyes are sharp. He's seen things, Baccali duels, slave escapes, drunken senators trying to bribe their way out of trouble. He pauses beside a bakery, pokes the fire pit, nods. Tonight, all is quiet. But quiet is fragile now. Follow the scent of flour and ash because not all fire is danger. Some is life. You duck into a pastrina, a Roman bakery, where the nocturnal bakers are already hard at work. Bread is the fuel of Rome. Over 200,000 people in the city receive free grain from the state every month. But grain is not enough. It must be ground, mixed, baked, delivered. And that begins long before the city wakes. In the heat of the bakery, men sweat and work. One kneads dough in a giant trough, his arms dusted with flour. Another shovels loaves into the massive clay oven, red hot from coals banked hours earlier. The light flickers off the curved walls, casting long shadows on the ceiling. Their speech is low-murmured jokes, half-spoken songs. There's pride here. They feed the people. But it's also hard. Their shifts begin at midnight and end just before sunrise. By the time you're biting into fresh bread on the street, they're already asleep. Or trying to be, just down the alley. You see someone else, a night porter, at a wealthy domus. He's not baking, he's watching his job. To guard the door, not from invaders. Rome is at peace tonight, but from questions. Messengers come at all hours. Lovers too. Servants slip in and out. He keeps the household secrets. For a few coins, he might even share them. He yawns now, but he dares not sleep. If his master finds him dozing, there will be consequences. You keep walking. You pass a laundry shop. Closed now, but behind it, a side room glows faintly. Someone stirs a pot, a slave. Still working in Rome, slaves don't get nights off. For many, the night is when work begins. The day is too crowded, too hot, too watched. But at night, they can scrub the floors, prepare the next day's bath, beat the rugs, mend the clothes. One girl barefoot, young, carries a basin up the steps of her master's home. Her fingers are cracked from soap. She hums softly to herself. She has never known anything else. Her grandmother was born free, in the hills of Gaul. But she was born here, in the cellar of this very house. This is her world, tiled floors, whispered instructions, oil lamps, and footsteps. Now you're moving past the Subura, again the working-class district we've visited before. But this time, you stop at a small shop where a hunched man carves figures out of bone. He's an artisan. His hands are deft, even in his 60s. He makes charms, combs, dice, tiny gods. Most days, he sells from a booth. But tonight, in the hush of early morning, he works without distraction. Why? Because time alone is a luxury. And he likes the quiet. So he sits with a candle, shaping a figure of Mercury no taller than your thumb. It's beautiful. He doesn't speak. You don't interrupt. Now follow the scent of wine and old smoke into a papina, a night tavern still half open. Not all Romans rise with the sun. Some, like you, prefer the night. Inside, two men gamble with knucklebones. A woman with gold-dusted eyelids sings softly while cleaning the tables. The innkeeper dozes behind the counter, but he's awake enough to count coins. And in the back corner, a philosopher scribbles. Yes, a philosopher. Night belongs to them too. He's writing about virtue, about the proper way to live. His scroll is cluttered with notes, his fingers stained with ink. He says he finds clarity at night, when the world is quiet. Even the gods, he murmurs, speak more clearly after midnight. He smiles at you, then goes back to writing. You step out. Again, the night is almost over. Now let's find one last place. One last job. One last story. Follow the cobblestones north, where the Tiber glows silver. You see them now, figures loading a barge. Not soldiers, not slaves. Night portersmen, hired to move grain, amphorae of oil, crates of goods while the city sleeps. Rome's markets must be stocked by sunrise. The forum must be filled with olives, fish, onions, saffron, lemons. Someone must bring it all in, and so these men lift, haul, stack. Their bodies are broad, their hands scarred. They joke in Greek and Punic and broken Latin. They sing dirty songs. Their work is grueling, but it is honest. You watch one man pause, wipe his brow, and look toward the horizon. The sky is turning pale, dawn is coming, and with it, the city will change. The night belongs to workers, watchers, wanderers, but the day belongs to the Senate, the temples, the scholars, the shoppers. The performance of Rome begins again. Togas will be donned, scrolls unfurled, prayers muttered, lawsuits shouted. But for now, just for a moment, the streets are still, in the hands of those who carry, clean, patrol, bake, mend, and feed. It is almost time to sleep, as you walk back to your room. Yes, the cozy room where this whole journey began. You see the first bread carts rattling down the streets. The lamp in the healer's window flickers out. The augur leaves the rooftop. The dream reader lays her head down. Even the ghosts go quiet. You open your door. The blanket welcomes you. The cot creaks just a little as you lie down. One last breath. One last whisper. And sleep gentle, earned, full of story stakes. Because now, you've seen the night in Rome. Not just the statues and senators. Not just the myths and marbles. But the faces in shadow. The quiet hands. The whispers in alleyways. The footsteps that never stopped. You've walked where few do. And you've learned that even the greatest city in the world is nothing without the people who keep it breathing while the rest of it dreams. Good night, wanderer. Rome will be here when you wake.